Good evening. Today, we delve into a fictional world that, chillingly, mirrors our own. I'm referring to Squid Game, and more specifically, the 7th episode, VIPS. It's an hour of television that, while fantastical, lays bare some of the most uncomfortable truths about our society, our power structures, and the inherent cruelty that festers beneath the veneer of civilization. We're not here to simply recap plot points, but to analyze the underlying forces at play, using this fictional narrative as a lens through which to examine our own world. I want to address 7 key areas of concern. 1. Root causes and context, history, society, power, culture. Is it isolated? The Squid Game, as presented in VIPS, is not an isolated event, but a symptom of deep-rooted societal pathologies. Historically, we see a consistent pattern of exploitation, where the wealthy and powerful have used the poor and vulnerable for their own gain. From the Roman gladiatorial contests to modern-day economic disparities, the commodification of human suffering is a recurring theme. The game is a hyperbole of this, creating an environment where individuals can be discarded for the entertainment of those at the very top. Culturally, we live in a world increasingly fascinated with spectacle. From reality television to sensationalized news, there's a growing acceptance of the commodification of human experience. This has cultivated an environment in which a game like the Squid Game can exist, and it exists not only in the fiction of the show, but also in the ways our society is becoming more and more obsessed with spectacle and entertainment at all costs. The show taps into a very real anxiety that many feel, that power is held by the few, and that they are disconnected from the consequences of their decisions. This feeling is not isolated to the show, but is an undercurrent in society. The VIPs, with their animal masks and their casual betting, embody this detachment. The game, in a twisted way, offers a commentary on how those at the top often see the poor as nothing more than pawns, or resources to be used or discarded as they please. This episode, and the series as a whole, shows this dynamic played out to a terrifying extreme. The game itself, therefore, is a logical, if extreme, extension of trends that have been happening for a long time in the ways societies are organized. 2. Core elements and logic, motivations, processes. What's the central conflict? The core conflict in VIPS revolves around power, desperation, and the struggle for survival within a system designed to dehumanize its participants. The motivations of the players are initially tied to financial gain and the desperate desire to escape their lives of poverty. However, the game quickly becomes about more than just money. It's a fight for self-preservation and all that they hold dear. The game is designed to force them into situations where they must decide between their morality and their lives, all for the entertainment of an elite. The process of the game, particularly in the Glass Stepping Stones challenge, reveals the arbitrary nature of survival. While some might try to strategize as the glass worker does, ultimately fate is the ultimate deciding factor, which is a key component of the overall message that the show is trying to convey. The game is a study of how easily order and logic can crumble under the weight of fear. The motivations of the VIPs, meanwhile, are purely hedonistic. They crave entertainment, the thrill of witnessing life-or-death situations without consequences. The central conflict is, therefore, not just the players battling each other, but the larger conflict of the desperate versus the detached. This reveals the corrupting nature of power and wealth, and how those in the position of power will often abuse it. 3. Social impact, demographics, opinions. Who's most affected? The social impact of the Squid Game, as depicted in VIPS, is profound and far-reaching. It speaks to a global audience, reflecting anxieties about economic inequality, class division, and the ways in which modern society seems to be increasingly dehumanizing its citizens. The show has resonated across demographics, as it taps into the same insecurities that many in society are feeling. The show itself creates many different viewpoints through its diverse group of characters. Those most affected by the Squid Game, within the show's context, are the players, the marginalized, the indebted, and those who have been systematically failed by society. It demonstrates how those who are at the bottom of society can so easily be taken advantage of, but also demonstrates how those who are at the top will, at best, simply ignore the poor and at worst, seek to profit off of their suffering. However, the larger effect the show has had is in its ability to inspire global discourse about real-world problems. The series has created a conversation about topics like poverty, inequality, morality, and power, bringing important themes to a wide audience. While the show is fictional, the themes are rooted in fact and should prompt conversation about what is happening in our own society. 4. Power and accountability, abuse, responsibility. Who's accountable? VIPS lays bare the abuse of power and the complete lack of accountability that plagues our own societal systems. The VIPs, with their masks and anonymous identities, represent those who wield power without being held responsible for their actions. They are a symbol of the elite who can profit from the misery of others and never be held accountable for it. The controllers of the Squid Game, represented by the front man and the game organizers, also show this, as they simply enforce the rules without any regard for the ethical issues or the consequences of the game that is being run. The show also demonstrates that accountability is non-existent in a system that values power over humanity. The players are ultimately reduced to pawns, their lives deemed expendable for the amusement of the powerful. This speaks to an underlying tension of our own world, in which those in power are often able to avoid the consequences of their actions, or are able to insulate themselves from any form of retribution. This demonstrates a serious problem in our society, where those with power often create the rules that allow them to continue to take advantage of those who do not have power. 5. Ethics and morality, values, fairness. Does it violate ethics? The Squid Game in VIPS is a profound ethical and moral violation. The game completely disregards the value of human life, commodifying desperation and turning human suffering into entertainment. The fair play of the competition is a veneer, as the rules are designed to favor the rich and exploit the vulnerable, and even in the most fair of circumstances, the game is not designed for players to survive, and it is only through luck and chance that anyone has a chance. The actions of Sang-woo, while understandable within the game's parameters, highlight the moral compromises people make when faced with life or death situations, and how systems such as the Squid Game seem designed to corrupt the best of intentions. The complete lack of empathy by the VIPs exposes an underlying moral bankruptcy. They are devoid of compassion and only view the players as objects of amusement. The show is deeply critical of the idea that people will act ethically simply because it is the right thing to do. On the contrary, it suggests that given the opportunity and the right incentives, people will make unethical decisions, especially if those decisions will aid in their survival, or if they can do so without facing any consequences. The entire concept of the Squid Game is unethical and immoral, and should be seen as a serious indictment of our current social and economic systems. 6. Future and solutions, trends, prevention. How do we avoid recurrence? The trends highlighted in VIPS are deeply concerning, as they mirror a global trajectory toward increased inequality, dehumanization, and the commodification of human experience. We can see in the show how systems can be set up to continue to exploit those without power. Prevention, in this context, requires both systemic change and a fundamental shift in societal values. We need to address the root causes of economic inequality, creating a fairer and more just society that offers real opportunities for upward mobility, instead of one where a select few are able to take advantage of the desperation of the many. We must also question the way our culture emphasizes spectacle and consumption, and start to value true human connection and empathy over vapid entertainment. Regulations need to be put in place to ensure that those with power are accountable for their actions, and the creation of a more ethical economic system is needed, one in which it is not profitable to exploit the less fortunate. We must ensure that such a game only exists within the boundaries of fiction, and that we don't let such realities enter our own world. Ultimately, real change will require a renewed commitment to compassion and a recognition of the inherent value of human life. The only way to avoid a future that looks like the one in Squid Game is to take action in the present. 7. Human narratives, courage, hope. What are the stories of resilience? Despite the grim backdrop, VIPS also offers glimpses of human resilience and courage. Ji-hun's constant struggle with his conscience, even when presented with opportunities to betray others, serves as an example of how we must hold on to our humanity, even in the face of extreme challenges. Ali's acts of selflessness, even when surrounded by the brutality of the games, demonstrates that it is still possible to act with compassion. The glass workers' attempt to find a way to help the others demonstrates that even in a completely corrupt system, people can act with courage and ingenuity. The players' will to survive, despite facing terrible odds, is another powerful testament to human strength. Their stories, as a whole, are testaments to the strength of the human spirit and demonstrate the power of human connection in a dehumanizing world. It is through those small moments of connection and solidarity that we see the humanity that the games are designed to take away, and find a reminder of the value of compassion and connection in a world that often seems to lack both. Squid Game is a piece of fiction, but it's also a mirror reflecting our own world. VIPS exposes the dark underbelly of unchecked power, the corrosive effects of desperation, and the dangers of a society that values spectacle over empathy. The questions raised by this episode should compel us all to look more critically at the systems we've created, the values we uphold, and the kind of future we want to build. This is not just a commentary on a TV show. This is a call to action for a more compassionate and just world.